Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I've been working on my 2018 Jeep Wrangler JL with a 2-liter turbo engine. So I'll get right here. And I was running into an issue that a lot of people seem to complain about, which is a timing chain rattle. It happens on cold startup, lasts about a minute, minute and a half. And then sometimes while driving it, you'll kind of hear it pop up. From having a conversation with ChatGPT, I did a bit of a deep search and found that it is common, but it doesn't seem to ever hurt the engine. ChatGPT was never able to find one instance where the engine actually lost timing and destroyed itself because of this issue. But it is annoying, so I wanted to fix it. The issue is there's no information online about this motor. It's still pretty new. It is somewhat shared with the Alfa Romeos. They have multi-air, while this one does not, but it is somewhat shared, but still I couldn't cross over from any of the Alfa forums. So I had to get an all data subscription and figure out some of the steps. So if your engine sounds like it rattles on cold start, your car has over 45,000 miles, this is likely the fix for you. Luckily, it's not super expensive in terms of parts. Labor is a bit intensive. And you will need some special tools. So without further ado, let's dive in. So some of the parts you're going to need are gaskets and timing chain tensioners, as well as some seals and bolts. So let's walk through those. So diving into the job, first thing you're going to do, of course, is disconnect your negative battery terminal and then remove your whole air intake tract. And sorry, this is a laddergram because I did this yesterday and didn't have the patience to videotape it at the same time as I was doing the work. So once you have your intake tube out of the way, the next step is getting access to this valve cover right here. So literally everything you see here has to be taken off. Of course, the engine cover is already on the ground. Side cover, that comes off pretty easily. And then you start picking out at all these hoses. Diverter valve hose, you got these breather lines, the turbo intake throttle body pipe has to come out, the entire wiring harness. By the way, these little clips, I just gave up on trying to fix them. I tried lifting them out very gently off the studs, but I don't know. I don't have the ability to save these, so mine ended up mostly breaking. Once you got most of the general nonsense out of the way, you want to take off your EGR, and then your next step is going to be to remove the thermostat housing. The thermostat housing needs to be removed because it is in the way of removing the valve cover. Before that, I would recommend going right down there and you doing this union right here and draining your coolant out. So that was pretty easy for me. Got a pair of pliers on there and was able to drain my coolant. Back to the valve cover. You've got all your wiring harness out of the way. You've got your EGR out of the way. You got your thermostat housing out of the way. I just undid this hose and then lifted all this up and kind of bungee corded it out of the way. Your next step is to remove all your ignition coils. Then comes your high pressure fuel line. This one right here. There is a nut back here to loosen the pressure. I personally just put a rag around it and slowly cracked it and didn't have any huge fuel pressure shooting out from it, so it was not a big deal for me. But there's a metal line that goes from here and it's covered by this little plastic felt cover to the back of the head, which is incredibly annoying to get loose on the back side of the head. Up here is where you loosen it for the injectors, and that's not too bad. So once that's loose, you pull out 4 of these bolts and your entire fuel rail comes out. I had to do very minimal prying to get mine out because we're prying on plastic, so you want to be a little gentle, but for me it took very little. I hear it's 90% to 98% of the time they come out super easy. Some of them can be a little tricky. One thing to mention is when it comes to all the wiring harness, disconnect all of it, like everything you see, because you really want to lift it up and out of the way. It goes from here all the way around and back around this way. So every connector on this side, every connector on the front, disconnected, and again, bungee corded out of the way. Once you pull your high pressure fuel injectors out, you might feel a little worried that some of the front ones have what looked like coolant residue. Mine had that. I freaked out for a little bit, and then I figured, no, it's just because whenever they pressure wash the engine, whenever this car was at some dealer, some water ingress probably happened right here and pulled up. When I looked closer at the tip of the injectors, there was no coolant on it. It was actually just water that had pooled around the injector and made it look a little crummy. It wiped right off. Okay, so you've got your mostly naked valve cover. You want to undo all the nuts and bolts all the way around and down the center, and you want to start removing it. That can get very tricky because it does not like to clear right here at the turbo exit to the valve cover. I'm sorry, I can't really get a good camera angle for you, but right down here, it'll touch. So as you're lifting it up, it'll touch. So one little trick is you can pull out these bolts completely. I think I pulled out like the 3 on this side, so those don't catch. And then you want to lift the valve cover all the way to where this stud back here is jamming itself right here. And you literally pivot it out like that. Do not pry right here. You will likely break it. Keep pushing up on this, and then all of a sudden the valve cover will come free. Then you'll be exposed with your cams, and then the next fun step is to take apart the front of the engine. That is not super complicated, and I'm sorry you don't have a great camera angle, but you want to remove your brake vacuum pump. It's electric, 3 bolts, pretty easy, couple connectors. Get that out of the way. Get this guy pulled out of the way, this line right there. I have the e-torque, so I've got the bigger alternator, electric engine thing, whatever. So I've got the one belt. You remove this entire assembly on my car. You remove that tensioner, and then you remove that idler as well. Both belts come out, and then you take your special tool, you lock down your crank, and then you loosen that bolt. That comes out. In my case, the alternator generator had to be unbolted from the top. I don't know if I can see the bolt, and loosened at the bottom just so I could pivot it out of the way ever so slightly to get the big giant timing cover out. Once you get that timing cover off, well, first you're gonna have to fight it. Be very gentle. The service manual actually suggests applying some heat to it to loosen the Mopar 3 bond or whatever RTV stuff they use. It's stuck on there. I took my time, 2 pry bars right on the factory pry spots, and it eventually came out. Do not forget all the bolts on the front timing cover, and then the 3 that go from the oil pan up into the timing cover. You want to get all those out. Timing cover will come out. Then you're faced with the most annoying part of the job, which is to remove the RTV from it. It is absolutely obnoxious to remove that RTV. It is in a bit of a channel, so you can't get a razor blade in there. I kind of have to use I use a plastic spudger kind of tool to kind of get all the RTV out. It was a pain. It took me an hour. But once that's done, you can set your timing cover aside, and then comes the 2 tensioners. For the timing tensioner, first I want to say you should set your engine at top dead center. You don't have to, but in case something goes wrong, it's a good idea to set your engine at top dead center. You do not want to release the timing chain tensioner without putting some zip ties around the chain. I put a zip tie right at the bottom sprocket just to tighten that chain, and then 2 zip ties closer to where the timing chain tensioner is to hold some tension on that chain. So when I removed the 2 bolts and took that timing chain tensioner out, the chain didn't just go loose, and then the chain might fall off one of the sprockets. If your engine's at TDC, intake camshaft should be around noon to 11. Exhaust camshaft should be around the 1 p.m. to the normal, so about like that. And that's in time. I worried about it a little bit, and I looked it up on ALLDATA. That's how they're supposed to be. I believe 22 chain links between each arrow on the camshaft, so you count 22. Anyways, your zip tie is on, you're feeling good about your chain, making sure everything's tight. Take that tensioner out, put the new one in, pull the pin pretty easily. For the lower one, much less prep work. You just slightly loosen both of the bolts, and then you then it'll actually get stuck inside the cover housing, if that makes sense. You just take a screwdriver and kind of slightly pry it out, and that lower one will come out with no big deal. I torqued them both good and tight. I can probably find a torque specification for you. But congratulations, you're at the half point of the job. Now comes time to reseal the whole timing cover gasket. Again, you'll see where you pulled the RTV out in that little channel is where you reapplied. You do not put it on the mating surfaces, so you put it in a little channel all the way around, and then you put it on the back side of the oil pan. Let me rephrase that. On the front of the oil pan is a little channel on the back side, again, where the RTV goes, like the factory did it. Put it on, tighten all your bolts, you're good. I'm not gonna go through every step of reassembly except injectors. They require a special tool to change the seals. These are not like low pressure injectors. You do want to replace the Teflon, I think they're called, or PTFE or something, seals at the bottom. I bought a nice little tool on Amazon that did the trick, and I can kind of guide you through how that works. I took a razor blade and very carefully cut the old seals out. You do not want to, scratch that injector's body at all. So I just kind of took a razor blade and just gently lifted up on the seal and cut it out. Once the seal was off, spray a little brake parts cleaner, clean the injector, and then you put a cup on the front of the injector, which allows you to stretch the new seal on with the pusher tool from this little kit that I bought on Amazon, which I'll link. And then the seal will sit in the right location, but it'll be too large. Well, there's another tool that kind of forces it back down. From memory, the Lyle tool has 4 little cones. I use a .0301 to put the seal on, and I used a .310, I don't know what you call it, a little block that would shrink it back down. You basically keep pushing onto that seal with that little block. I have a picture for you, until that seal shrinks back down. Once that's done and all the seals look good, of course, reassemble your engine, put your injectors in, and then it comes time to fight with that rear fuel pipe. It's a very, very big pain in the butt. You need a stubby 17 to get it off the back side of the head. You're not going to get it with anything else. And use a mirror, go by braille, whatever you got to do. Also, because of how much fighting the valve cover gave me going out, I was very careful putting it back in. And what I ended up doing was taking my mirror and checking the whole perimeter to make sure that it hadn't folded or anything, but no surprises there. I want to say one of the last tidbits, other than reassembly is the reverse of disassembly, is the torque value for the lower nut. That one is very important. And that is 37 foot-pounds plus 68 degrees. I had the right tool, so I was able to get it pretty close. If you don't, I would get it to 37 foot-pounds, make a mark at 0 and 90, and stop 20 degrees less than 90. I think as long as you get it somewhat at area, you should be fine. You should fight it a little bit. It should take quite a bit of torque. I ended up marking mine with a paint pen to make sure it just didn't move on me. And so there you have it. Hopefully this will guide you enough that the tricky bits will become a little bit more clear for you and that you feel more comfortable doing this job. I'd recommend this job for the slightly more advanced DIYer. It does require a lot of finesse and milling connectors, just being very gentle with everything you're touching. But it is doable. It took me, I think, about 8 or 9 hours. And a lot of that was just learning and going back to all data to check to make sure I was doing things correctly. But the result is my engine is nice and quiet. Thanks for listening, and I hope this video helps you guys out.